Thank you for joining us for an overview of sections A through D of the CNA SIP template. We appreciate your dedication and interest in the continuous school improvement process. As a result of our time together, you will understand how the sections fit together, the purpose of each section, the content of each section, how to enter the information for each section, the difference between the Word and Google template formats, and then what to do if questions arise. This should look familiar if you've joined us for part one. Section A is comprised of the required core elements. Section D is where data is gathered around the core elements and around our school goals. Section C is the analysis section. That's where we conduct a gap analysis and a root cause analysis. And then Section D is where all of this comes together and action plans, such as our school improvement plan and our professional development plan, are written. So how do these fit together? Well, in Section A, we look for any hidden problems, conditions we know exist but may not recognize as problems. For example, do all staff believe that all children can learn, and do they consistently encourage students to do so? Is there a plan in place to provide in-service training in the use of technology? Or are pacing guides or curriculum maps used to plan and teach a standards-based curriculum? It's important to have an honest discussion around what's happening in our schools. And then in Section B, we look at this information and at our current goals. We gather data on that which we believe to be areas where improvement is needed immediately. And then knowing this, we dig deeper in Section C, where we look for gaps between where we are and where we want to be. And then we drill down to find the root cause or the underlying cause of our problems. And then finally, in Section D, we develop goals and focused strategies to address these underlying problems. This is a good place to pause and address a couple questions you may have. First, why is the CNA in the middle of the school improvement plan? Well, the answer is because it's a natural flow for the planning process. They're almost inseparable. The first section contains elements that are required in a school improvement plan. They provide the information that we must have to know that the school is on the right track. And this information is necessary to find out where we must improve. Well, that is where the needs assessment comes in. Simply put, it's assessing our needs with the information we have. So once we know exactly where our needs are and can identify the real problems that exist, we can then plan to solve them, which is in Section D. So we have the information in Section A. We gather data around that information and around current goals in Section B. We then find gaps, and then we write our plans. So as you can see, if we went right from evaluating the core elements and then writing our school improvement plan, we wouldn't do anything with our data, such as collecting it or analyzing it through a gap or root cause analysis. That's why the school improvement plan is split and the CNA is right in the middle. A second question might be, what if we're not required to conduct a comprehensive needs assessment? Simply put, you would complete only sections A and D. That said, I would suggest that you'll still want to assess your school's needs. I mean, this has to be done before we create a plan anyway. So the difference is these schools will do it informally. But the template is so simple that even schools might want to consider using it perhaps as a brief worksheet. For example, if a school has not reached its goals, it may want to consider conducting a root cause analysis to find out why. So let's look at the sections individually, beginning with Section A. The purpose of Section A is to provide the information required by Indiana Code around the core elements. And then, very importantly, to have discussions around the information about the school, and then to begin that data collection process. The core elements for Section A are listed here. You'll note that some core elements pertain only to certain populations. For example, the number 10, the provision for secondary schools, would only be completed by secondary schools. And the provision for Title I schools operating a school-wide program would only pertain to schools with Title I school-wide programs. We'll not go through all of these, but let's take a look at a couple. We'll look at content and how to enter information. First, we want to make sure that we read the directions on each page. These are very helpful and will guide you through the completion of each section. The point of this table is twofold: compliance with Indiana code and to cause school leaders to consider the value of the resources being used. On this table, only list the resources used by a majority of teachers. You see that schools with course descriptions need only place a link to the descriptions in the rationale column. In the elementary, this may be the adopted textbook. However, if, for example, there is a subscription to an online resource and it is used by a full grade level, it should be added because you'll want to know if it is indeed aligned with the Indiana academic standards, and you'll want to have a rationale for using it. As you can see in the example, you have to be concise. So in the column under rationale for resources used, a supplemental online resource may simply be essential to support the core instruction. Again, this is for you and your school, not for the department. Another table common to Section A looks like this, and it's not for us to monitor any kind of compliance. As I said earlier, this is to provoke discussion and decisions about what's going on in the school. In the last column, you'll note that you can put an X. This is for your convenience to indicate where you might want to come back later to have further discussion, because it may either be a strength to build on or a concern to address through more discussion. Let's look at assessment. For the core element of assessment, there are just a couple things to point out. First, list only assessments not all already required by the state. You wouldn't list iLearn or WIDA, for example. As with the curriculum chart, there's a column to concisely describe the rationale for its use. It may be to identify high-ability students, for example. A new required element is career awareness and development. Now, it's divided by grade level bands. Here's an example of K through 5. Remember, when asked to provide text, the characters are limited, so provide concise but meaningful responses. The purpose of Section B is to begin the needs assessment process using data, review potential issues from the core elements, and then evaluate progress on current school goals. Right off the bat, there's a chart that provides possible sources of data. This is not an exhaustive list. Schools may use as much or as little as they wish. The point is to gather relevant data so that you can make good, sound decisions. Check the box by what is being analyzed. Most likely, it will be in 3 areas. Anything in Section A where an X was placed in that last column, indicating that more discussion is required because there may be a potential problem with that area. Current student academic performance, and then data around current school goals. Remember that TSI schools, or Targeted Support and Improvement schools, must analyze data pertaining to any underperforming group for which they've been identified. Now, there's no need to input data by hand. You may simply link the data in any of those blank spaces you see in the 3rd or 4th columns. Remember, any reports must be free from student identifiable information, such as STN numbers or student names. There are pages for school leaders to review their current school goals using data. There is room for only 3, so review those on which the most time was and most resources were spent. Since this is an update for most schools, you'll probably concentrate more on analyzing and revising current school goals. These pages are really pretty straightforward. And remember to be concise. That's the end of Section B. In Section C, the purpose is to determine where gaps exist between desired performance and actual performance. Then to prioritize these identified gaps. And lastly, to identify actual cause of problems or root causes for each identified gap. A chart is provided for gap analysis. Details about facilitating a gap analysis are provided in another training. This will include how to complete this chart. Once school leaders have prioritized a set of needs based on the gap analysis, they will list them here and conduct a root cause analysis for each. Again, how to conduct a root cause analysis is presented in another training. The most important point of this chart in the template is to remember that the prioritized gaps become the focus of your goals. And these already may be goals from last year and still need attention. The root cause or causes or you might consider these as the basis of the school's problems, are listed in the right column and become the focus of strategies and action steps in our school improvement plan. Our final section, Section D's purpose is to develop and modify the school improvement goals based on identified gaps, develop or modify professional development goals, and then to identify possible funding sources to support goal fulfillment. This text is taken directly from the school improvement template. Using this text will guide you through Section D. Just like there was a chart for data, there's a chart for possible funding sources. As plans are being developed, how to fund any necessary components should always be on school leaders' minds. This is not a complete list, and remember to work with district leadership on funding. Also note that there are funds not listed here that may be available, such as additional grants. These may be from foundations or nonprofit organizations, businesses, and industry. As with any funding source, make sure you coordinate the funding through your school corporation's district office. This is a sample goal in the template. By spring 2022, 70% of students in grades 6 through 8 who are identified as in need of special education services in mathematics will demonstrate mathematical proficiency as measured by the iLearn assessment. In the following slides, we will go through each of these circled areas. First of all, goals should be written in a SMART goal format. SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. In our sample, the object of the goal was that students in grades 6 through 8 who were identified as in need of special education services in mathematics. We were specific about what or who we were addressing. It was measurable because we noted that 70% of the students would demonstrate mathematical proficiency as determined by the spring 2021 iLearn assessment. Goals should also be attainable, demanding but attainable. In this case, the school staff would have believed that a target of 70% was both demanding and attainable. Goals must be relevant. This is why leaders spend time determining where improvement is needed immediately. Remember, the goals are based on the gaps found in the gap analysis. And finally, goals are time-bound. In our example, we noted spring 2021. According to ESSA, interventions must be based on evidence provided through scientific study. The top 3 levels are recognized in Indiana as being acceptable. Last year, finding such a study was quite a problem for many school leaders. The good news is, if you are revising a goal for this year, the evidence submitted last year will work, provided the goal has not changed substantially. Also, the Office of Title Grants and Supports is developing a list of acceptable evidence-based interventions. We will make sure you are aware when this is released. Just remember, the evidence-based strategy is the basis for your action steps. Action steps are the doing part of the strategy. Let's look at the example and follow a logic model. Our gap analysis found that we have a true lack of achievement in math, and then our root cause analysis found this was because we had not provided good, solid, ongoing job-embedded professional development for teachers in effective mathematics instruction. We found that a blended instructional model is effective in mathematics for students in special education. So our action step activity is to provide ongoing job-embedded professional development in the blended model for math instruction. We can also think of this as using an if-then statement. If we conduct ongoing job-embedded training for teachers in blended mathematics instruction and do so with fidelity, then our goal of 70% of students in grades 6 through 8, etc., should be met. Of course, the goal is not reached due to one action step, but a combination of action steps. The final part of Section D is the professional development plan. Let's first clarify that professional development and training are not the same. What we're doing now is a training, an activity or activities that have an immediate impact on some aspect of your job. Learning a new gradebook program, for example, or how to administer the iLearn assessment. Those are examples of training. Professional development is career-focused and impacts one's effectiveness in performance. It happens over time, it's job-embedded, and requires coaching and collaboration. So just consider this as you plan your professional development. Finally, let's look at the choice of formats and how you will complete the school improvement template. As noted earlier, it's available in both Word and Google versions. In the Word version, there are drop-down boxes where users may select a choice. In the Google version, these choices are given, and users simply highlight their choice. In the Word version of the template, text spaces are limited, whereas in the Google version, text spaces are unlimited. And lastly, in the Word version of the template, boxes are provided so that users may indicate their choice or choices. In the Google version of the template, those choices are provided, and users would simply highlight their choice or choices in, for example, the color yellow. Okay, that was a summary of sections A through D of the template. Thank you for your attention, and please reach out to me if you have any questions. Thank you.